which of these is the right way to balance your rifle. Stick around if you want to learn how to balance your rifle, how to be more effective on follow-up shots, and hit and see more impacts downrange. We're gonna take a look at this rifle, which this is the MDT ACC Premier Gen 2. It's a little bit heavier barrel profile. It also has some other weights built into it. And the nice thing about this system, it's designed to be compatible with a different series of weights so that you can find and build the best balance point possible. We're gonna show you the effects of having a rifle balanced at different positions, whether it's rear heavy, forward heavy, or neutrally balanced, and generally make a more comfortable, enjoyable shooting experience. Well, we've got our standard hunting rifle here. It's in 223, it's a Ruger American. It's a great rifle, and what you might see if you just pick something up for hunting off the shelf. It's very handy, relatively lightweight. The optic that we have on this is a little bit overkill for this platform for pure hunting, and it actually, because it's kind of heavy, it actually helps the CG a little bit more, meaning center of gravity, and then it keeps it loosely at the front of the mag well. However, in this test, what we're doing is trying to show what you might see if you were just zeroing your rifle and then shooting out of a position, say a hunting blind or off of a cattle gate or a post. We're gonna show you with the trigger cam what I see through my reticle as I'm sending shot and shot after shot. So in this case, we won't have a lot to manipulate the weight on this, but this represents a very rear heavy rifle. But for now, we're gonna quickly set it up at 100. We're gonna make sure that it's roughly zeroed and then take a few shots and see if we can see where we're at. Okay, that's loosely zeroed. So I need to come up approximately 1.5 to 1.8 mils at 375 yards for a pig target that we have downrange. But let's just show you what this looks like without a mag. So in order to balance this rifle, you can see I actually have to have it all the way up to the trigger guards, which is impossible. The way we would shoot this particular rifle, I don't have a mag in it, so unless I had a hinge floor plate style system, I wouldn't be able to get the rifle to this position with this mag. So we're gonna show you what that looks like. If I put in this mag and I get it up to the mag well, it is going to fall rearward every single time. And I also have a very hard time kind of keeping it up without using shoulder pressure at the rear to try to drive the rear up and keep the reticle on target. So we're gonna take a few shots at the 375 yard mark to show you what we see. All right, so on target, I'm gonna settle the reticle. There we go. And here you can see it's up about 3 mils and up and to the right. It also twisted, it's heavy on top. Let's take one more shot. And just over his ear, it was right there. But you notice that on that last shot, or the one just prior to that, the gun went up and right and also tilted to the left. What that tells me is that in order to shoot this rifle effectively and try to stay on target, even in a 223, I need to be into the system quite heavily. Two, because it's such a light system and there's quite a bit of weight up top, it's trying to torque itself left to fit my shoulder pocket here. If I feel the rifle generally, it wants to torque into my shoulder pocket, and this is how the rifle would naturally sit. It is definitely not level. So real level, somewhere about here on target. Whereas as soon as I fire, just because of my pocket, it's trying to tip it at about 10 to 15 degrees to the left. Part of that is just the profile of the buttstock tends to hook around your arm as opposed to being flatter and maybe less pointy. Second, as I run the shot, because I have my left hand on the very edge of the stock, as I'm pressing down when I'm trying to keep the rifle in the same spot, it also helps torque the rifle to the left. So you can see our bag here is pitched a little bit. Even if I keep that pretty centered, it wants to torque the rifle to the left. So I can fix that a little by just putting my hand up to the top of the scope, but it's still not ideal to have a system that wants to move or torque on you. So what we want to do next is we're going to drop this mag, make this gun safe, and move to our average balance. So we're about the right balance for sort of a neutral rifle. The keys we want to look for is that when we set our rifle on the bag that we're shooting, we want our balance point to be approximately midway through the bag that we're shooting. So if our bag is, let's say, 8 inches, we want to have the balance point be about 4 inches from the mag well, so that as we push into the bag to give it support, it stays neutrally balanced, doesn't want to tip to the rear, doesn't want to tip to the front. That means that during the recoil, we're going to be less likely to see this. And that's generally a good characteristic. So let's take a few shots at 375. We're just going to do our best to keep the rifle as stable as possible through the shot so we can see where the reticle ends up post-shot as it settles on target. But this will be a pretty good test. If I can see where I'm impacting, we're gonna be in a pretty good spot to make some changes and adjustments for the next series of weights. So we're gonna come up on target. There we go, and we were center mass. We can see we came up about 3.5 mils total recoil. Take one more shot. There we go, center left, and you can see the reticle went high left, and it's about 1 mil of vertical with a little bit more pressure on my thumb, and it's about 1 mil left of center. So what does that tell me? That this rifle is reasonably balanced, or where they're getting close to the kind of natural balance point to keep it as flat as we can through the shot. But when we have the reticle go high and left, I generally expect that to come from my cheek weld. That means that I'm pressing down and into the rifle that direction with my cheek, which causes the reticle to move up and left through the shot. I'm trying to counter that by having neutral forces through all the areas of my body and making sure that as I'm pressing down with my front left hand and keeping the weight over the bag, I want to also not add pressure from my cheek. To show the effects of what happens when we add weight to the front of a rifle, we have our MDT ARCA weights. And these are generally designed for like 22s or systems where you have an ARCA rail and you need some weight to the front, but you don't want to give up that same spot for your bipod. So you'll see this has a ARCA slot on top and an ARCA dovetail on the bottom so that we can mount it to our chassis and still have a place to put our bipod or other accessories. And each of these weighs a little over 1.5 pounds. So we can quickly get to almost 6 pounds of weight on the front half of the rifle, making it very forward heavy in a hurry. Let's take one quick shot, one weight. There we go. And we had about, again, that 3 mils worth of muzzle rise kind of loosely into the rifle system. We're gonna add one weight on this. So we end up with 2 weights. All right, there we go. Now it was about 2 mils muzzle rise. Add a third weight. I can already start to feel the rifle wanting to tip forward right a bit here. So the original balance point on this system was right about here, and we've moved it a total of about 1 inch to 1.5 inches now out forward, and that's with 3 weights. There we go, about 2, but very quick to settle. And we're gonna add our last weight. And obviously, it's unlikely you'll ever shoot a rifle or see a rifle where you wanna stack all these weights in this configuration. Normally, we would put mass around the sides of the barrel channel just so we could have the most of the weight along the barrel's recoil path versus here, but we're doing this for example, and it is now very heavy. You can see if I'm sitting here, I'm gonna move the rifle around. It actually is natively, so there's balanced. I can let go of the rifle, and it tends to stay fairly square on target. If I push it up to the bag, now we're gonna see it just trying to drop. So it's trying to drop forward heavy and down below the shot, below my point of aim after the shot. So let's see what happens during the shot. There we go, and we had 0 muzzle rise. So we're right back on target. So we're gonna add yet one more mass. We're gonna put the bipod on to give it even more weight, just so we can show what happens. And now our balance point is just about 2.5 to almost 3 inches. It moved from here almost to the end of this M-lock slot. So now we have a balance point that's out past the front of the scope, which means if I set this here, the balance point is actually trying to turn the bag down. You can see how it's forward heavy and dropping forward on the bag, well supported. So we're gonna shoot this and see what happens. And you can see I can't even keep it here without letting go. It still wants to tip forward. You can see immediately post-shot it dropped, and now I'm looking under the target. That was about 2 mils. Let's try one more shot. Yeah, and you saw the first dip. It dipped down through the shot. It immediately dipped down and then settled back as the gun started sliding rearward. So I think we found that is the limit of a balance point where we're actually shoving the nose of the rifle down post-shot. This little monstrosity we have here is, yeah, pretty heavy. I mean, I don't think you're gonna see this in any real practical scenario. That said, it is a really interesting way to demonstrate how you can change the rifle balance point very effectively or very quickly, even if you just need one of these weights. Adding a weight like the MDT Arca weight can be a very easy way to help you mitigate some of that vertical rise post-shot. So if you want to take your rifle and add a little bit more customizability and make it easier to shoot, whether you're hunting with a lightweight system or a heavier competition rifle, the balance point is set up near the middle of the bag, and the positions you're going to shoot from are going to help you see more shots downrange, make it easier to set up in a given position, and just make a more comfortable shooting rifle.